In a small, cozy living room filled with the warmth of memories, Matilda and her 26-year-old son, Nathan, share a bond shaped by love, loss, and shared grief. The death of Robert, Matilda's husband and Nathan's father, has forever altered their world, but their connection remains a steady light in the darkness. In this video, we journey through their deeply personal story of healing, comfort, and the quiet rituals that bring them closer. Through playful moments and tender conversations, discover the depth of their relationship, a testament to resilience, love, and the power of family in times of sorrow. The depth of connection, a journey through grief and love. The small living room was a sanctuary of warmth and laughter, a reflection of the quiet life it housed. The room, modest in size, seemed to shrink and expand with the memories of years past, a cozy cocoon nestled in the heart of the world outside. The faint glow of the evening light danced on the walls, casting long shadows that told stories of joy, sadness, and everything in between. The winter wind howled outside, its icy fingers pressing against the windows as if trying to seep inside. But within the confines of these walls, the chill of the world was kept at bay. Here, there was only warmth, both literal and emotional. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of lavender oil, a comforting aroma that had become a ritual in the home's evenings. Matilda had begun using it during the late-night baths she shared with Nathan, a scent that soothed her and calmed the restless thoughts that plagued her since the loss of her husband. The smell lingered in the room, mixing with the faint echoes of their quiet laughter, creating an atmosphere of serenity amidst the grief they shared. Matilda sat on the couch, her gaze warm yet tired, as Nathan, her 26-year-old son, playfully teased her. The easy affection between them was palpable, but beneath it lay a deep undercurrent of shared loss. Nathan's dark hair, tousled from their latest playful scuffle, framed his face, and his bright blue eyes sparkled with the same mischievous gleam that had been a constant throughout his childhood. His body, now tall and broad, had grown into the man who was a comfort to her, but the essence of the child she had raised still remained in his infectious charm and loving nature. "Mom, you know you love it," Nathan said, his grin teasing yet endearing, as he leaned closer to her. His breath was warm against her skin, a reminder of the intimacy that had become a defining feature of their relationship. Matilda rolled her eyes, a smile tugging at the corners of her lips, but deep down, she couldn't deny the truth in his words. He was her anchor, the only constant in a world that had been irrevocably changed by the sudden death of her husband, Robert. The pain of losing Robert. A love that endured Matilda's heart ached as her thoughts turned to Robert, her beloved husband. His sudden death had left a void that could never be filled. Robert had been the love of her life, her partner in every sense. Together, they had navigated life's joys and sorrows, raised their son, and created a home that was filled with love and laughter. To lose him so suddenly had been a blow so profound that it had knocked the air from her lungs. The grief she carried was so deep, it felt like a part of her had been torn away. But in the midst of her mourning, Nathan had become her rock. He had stepped up in ways she could never have imagined, taking on responsibilities that had once belonged to Robert. At just 25 years old, Nathan was still finding his place in the world, but he had not hesitated to assume the role of her support system after his father's passing. With maturity beyond his years, he took on the challenges of managing the family business and navigating the complexities of life without Robert's steady guidance. Despite his own grief, Nathan had been her strength, his love for her becoming even more pronounced as they both struggled with the weight of their shared loss. In the absence of Robert, Nathan had not only become the man of the house but also the beacon of light in Matilda's life. His presence, both comforting and grounding, offered her the stability she needed to keep moving forward. He became the reminder that even in the darkest moments there was still love to be found, in him, in their memories, and in the life they had built together. Their bond, already strong, had deepened, shaped by their shared grief, and the intimacy that emerged in its wake. The strength of their bond. A relationship built on love and loss. The connection between Matilda and Nathan had always been strong, but in the aftermath of Robert's death, it had transformed into something even deeper. Their relationship had always been one of mutual respect, affection, and understanding. However, as the days turned into weeks and the weeks into months following Robert's passing, their bond took on a new dimension, one that transcended traditional mother-son dynamics. Their shared grief had forged a deep connection between them, one that was at once comforting and unsettling. Some might have found the closeness between Matilda and Nathan unusual. After all, Nathan was an adult now, no longer the child she had raised, but a grown man with his own life to live. Yet for them, the intimacy they shared felt natural, even necessary. Their shared grief had created a space where words were often unnecessary, where the touch of a hand or a shared glance conveyed more than any spoken sentence could. This unspoken understanding between them was the bedrock of their relationship, and it allowed them to find solace in one another in ways that others might not understand. Their physical closeness was often evident in their daily lives. At times, they would sit together on the couch, with Nathan's head resting in her lap as they watched television, or they would hold each other for comfort as if to shield each other from the world outside. These moments were not just a display of affection, but an expression of the deep bond they had formed in the wake of tragedy. Their intimacy was a way to bridge the emotional gap left by Robert's absence, to fill the void with love and connection that no one else could provide. The ritual of comfort, lavender baths, and shared solace. In the quiet aftermath of Robert's death, Matilda and Nathan found solace in each other's presence in ways they hadn't expected. What began as a simple act of care and kindness evolved into a nightly ritual that offered them both a chance to heal. The bath, once an ordinary part of their daily lives, became a sacred space where they could strip away the layers of grief, allowing the warmth of the water and the gentle scent of lavender oil to soothe their wounded hearts. Nathan, having witnessed the overwhelming toll of grief on his mother, had instinctively begun this ritual. It wasn't merely a gesture of assistance, it was his way of showing that he was present, willing to share in her pain and provide her with a small refuge from the overwhelming responsibilities she had inherited since Robert's sudden passing. He began by preparing the bath. He knew his mother's preferences. The water should be the perfect temperature, neither too hot nor too cold, and the lavender oil should be used just enough to fill the room with its calming aroma without overpowering the senses. At first, Matilda hesitated. The idea of sharing such an intimate space with her grown son felt foreign, but over time, it became a comfort she hadn't realized she needed. The large, claw-footed tub was spacious enough for them both to sit side by side, their legs submerged in the warm water. It was here, in the simple yet profound act of sitting together in the bath, that they found solace. There were no words necessary, only the shared experience of being present with one another. The world outside, their grief, the heavy silence left by Robert's absence, was momentarily suspended. Often, these evenings were marked by silence, the kind of silence that speaks volumes, filled with the unspoken acknowledgement of loss and the knowledge that they didn't need to fill the space with words. Sometimes they didn't speak at all, content to simply be together. The warmth of the water, combined with the lingering scent of lavender, would slowly ease the tension from their bodies, offering a sense of peace that neither had found in the busy routine of life. These baths became a momentary escape, a chance to shed the weight of their grief and just exist as mother and son, two souls bound by a shared love now intertwined even more deeply by the loss they carried. But there were times when conversation would drift in between the quiet moments. They would talk about the business, a subject that had become central to their lives since Robert's death. Nathan, though young, had stepped into his father's shoes with remarkable maturity, helping his mother with the daily operations and doing his best to keep their lives moving forward. They would reminisce about Robert, the man who had been their rock, their unwavering foundation. They would share stories of his quirky habits, his jokes, his way of making them feel safe in the chaos of life. Laughter would sometimes spill from them, followed by a few bittersweet tears as they acknowledged the hollow space Robert had left behind. One night, after they had both settled into the familiar routine of the bath, Nathan, his voice soft and filled with vulnerability, asked a question that had been weighing heavily on him. "Do you think Dad would be proud of us?" he asked, his eyes searching his mother's face as if trying to read her every emotion. It was a simple question, yet it carried the weight of months of grief, uncertainty, and longing. Matilda felt a rush of emotion. A mixture of pride, sorrow, and love flooded her chest as she gazed at her son. She cupped his face gently, her thumb brushing over the light stubble on his jawline as she searched for the right words. "He already is, Nathan. He always was. And so am I," she said firmly, the conviction in her voice unmistakable. Her words, though simple, were filled with all the love and pride she had always felt for her son. Robert had always been proud of Nathan, and though he was no longer there to say it, Matilda knew that his spirit would never be far from them. In that moment, the world outside seemed to vanish. It was just them, mother and son, together in the warm embrace of the water, their connection stronger than ever. The grief that had once felt so suffocating now seemed to be tempered by their bond, a bond that transcended loss. Matilda knew that even though Robert was gone, the love he had given them would continue to shape their lives, and that love would carry them both through the pain. The everlasting bond, a mother's love. As time passed, the bond between Matilda and Nathan grew in ways that neither of them could have predicted. It wasn't just the physical closeness they shared in the bath or the quiet moments on the couch. It was the emotional connection that deepened every day. Their grief, once isolating, had become a shared journey. They had become each other's anchor, a safe harbor in a stormy sea of loss and uncertainty. For Nathan, his role as his mother's confidant and support system had become one of the most important aspects of his life. While many sons might struggle to step into such a profound emotional role, Nathan embraced it with the same loving nature that had always defined him. He had become not just a son, but a partner in their shared grief, a constant presence by Matilda's side, helping her navigate the challenges that came with living without Robert. He had grown from the boy she once cradled in her arms to a man who carried the weight of their shared responsibilities with grace. Matilda, for her part, found strength in Nathan's presence. She had always been a woman of resilience, but the death of Robert had shattered a part of her she hadn't known could be broken. It was in Nathan that she found her anchor, the person who reminded her that she was not alone in her grief. Together, they had learned how to navigate a life without Robert, supporting each other through the darkest moments and finding moments of light in the smallest of things. One night, after a particularly hard day, Matilda found herself sitting on the edge of her bed, overwhelmed by the weight of grief that never seemed to ease. It had been months since Robert's passing, but the pain of his absence still felt as raw as the day she had learned of his death. The nights were the hardest, when the silence of the house became oppressive and her memories of Robert seemed to flood in, overwhelming her. As she sat in the darkness, her mind replaying the memories of her late husband, she heard the soft creak of the door. Nathan stepped into the room, his expression filled with concern. He had always known when something was wrong, even when she hadn't said a word. His presence alone was enough to calm the storm that raged within her. "Mom," he said gently, his voice soothing and familiar. "I saw you sitting here and I couldn't help but come in." His words, simple as they were, wrapped around her like a warm blanket, offering comfort she hadn't known she needed. Matilda looked up at him, her eyes filled with unshed tears. She had always tried to shield Nathan from her sorrow, but in this moment she knew she didn't need to hide it from him. One tear slipped down her cheek, and Nathan immediately moved closer, his hand resting on her shoulder in a gesture of quiet support. "I don't know how to go on without him," Matilda whispered, her voice breaking. I miss him so much. I need him." Nathan leaned in closer, his breath warm against her skin. "You don't have to do this alone," he murmured, his words a balm to her aching soul. "I'm here for you, Mom. Always." Matilda closed her eyes, allowing herself to lean into his touch. In that moment, a wave of peace washed over her, the reassurance of her son's presence offering her the strength she needed to carry on. The grief of losing Robert would never fully go away, but as long as she had Nathan, she knew she wouldn't have to face it alone. Together, they would continue to carry the memory of Robert forward, living in a world forever altered by his absence, but still filled with the love and connection that had always been a part of their family. Through grief and love, Matilda and Nathan had found a way to heal together.